Day.
And I'm Richard Day.
We're both chiropractors.
We've been in practice together for 11 years.
Married for 10.
With 3 beautiful little girls.
We know it's possible to have an exceptional practice that's built around your life.
Because we've done it.
So we've created this podcast,
the Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast.
We'll interview chiropractors, answer questions, and bring you resources to help build and grow your practice.
So let's get this party started.
Welcome back to the Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast. I'm still your host, Dr. Haley Day. Today I sat down with Chen Yen, an expert at helping chiropractors grow fulfilling practices faster without having to do it the exhausting, extroverted way. Chen's mission is to wake up the planet and change the way we treat illness and health. This can happen only if more chiropractors and holistic practitioners get the word out there. So keep listening to hear Chen's tips to grow your practice using MD referrals and other strategies for growing during the current pandemic. Hi, Chen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
So before we get started here, I'm curious, how did you go from being a pharmacist to giving chiropractors business makeovers?
Well, so I started out as a pharmacist on Native American reservations, and at first really enjoyed the traveling and the adventure, getting to know different tribes and cultures. But after a while, I started feeling dissatisfied going to the pharmacy. I remember this one time I gave this woman her Prozac medication, and I just felt so angry not at her, but really just what our healthcare system was putting in front of her, as if that were the only option and I was endorsing it. The truth was that, when I was younger, we grew up in a family that hardly took any medications, in contrast to seeing people come in and leave with bagfuls, 15, 20 medications as if it were candy. And then also little kids getting immunization shots and then leaving with a cocktail of medications, even when they weren't hurting. That drove me crazy. And you know how sometimes in moments in life where you might feel like, I don't really like what's going on, but I don't really know what to do next? Mm-hmm. Well, that was what was happening to me. I wasn't really sure what exactly to do, except I had to get out of there. But one thing I noticed was that other pharmacists around me were unhappy. And I thought, what if I could get them into jobs that they enjoyed more? So fast forward 5 years, I had started and grown a recruiting business to 7 figures. And back then I used to think that if I just made more money, then everything, I could just do what I really cared about outside of work. But it didn't show up that way for me. I went through this time frame where I did a lot of soul searching. And on the other side of it, I realized, I need to stop pretending. There's just still a big part of what I was doing that was primarily selling my soul for people to be on drugs. And I think that chiropractic and other holistic options are so much better than what a lot of people actually know about that's available to them. And a lot of people, it's so much better now than it was before, receptiveness to chiropractic and other holistic options, but it's still not happening quickly enough. And I don't think that it's going to be, the drug companies or insurance companies or government changing things. It really starts with chiropractors and other holistic practitioners also really, really getting the word out about what you do. So people are asking for it. And I think that's when things will really change. And so that's what led me to help chiropractors and other holistic practitioners, functional medicine practitioners, and other practitioners with growing their practices, because many went into it to help people, but not necessarily run a business. And then, out of school and wondering, okay, I'm supposed to figure this all out. It's just too overwhelming, right? So since then, we've helped a lot of docs, and for example, clients of ours include the past president of American Chiropractic Association Sports Council, the recent president of the American Association of Naturopathic Physicians, and American Society of Acupuncture board member too. But and also we've had clients who are totally brand new, starting out, wondering what to do, to already making 6 figures and being at a plateau. And so that's been the journey, and it's been really fulfilling. So
good. I'm glad you've kind of found a calling in a sense. So I know that can feel, I did that after college, not sure what I was going to do. And it took a couple years to decide to go to chiropractic school. So I really know that struggle. I'm wondering, you've been in lots of chiropractic offices then. What are you hearing from chiropractors is their biggest struggle right now?
So there are a couple things that I'm hearing right now is certainly needing more new patients because, even if people are coming back into the practice, some practices are experiencing more of a dip since this whole COVID thing. And then hearing that money is tight as well, that I can't afford it, or, things like, well, I haven't been out of work. I have been out of work for a little bit. So, just thinking more twice about the money. Another thing is also from newer docs and those graduating right now, starting a practice in this climate, how do you generate interest when you're just starting out and you don't know anyone in the area? And what could a new model of practice look like, especially if we're going to be shut down in the fall again, potentially, and then navigating, if can't see patients with what to do. So and also those big student loans are still an issue. So much money nowadays, over a couple $100,000 sometimes. It's just crazy. And graduating into an economy that's lagging.
Yeah, my husband and I graduated during the housing crisis. So, and that was not an easy time either. And I think with this, not knowing when, how the whole COVID's going to play out is a hard thing. Where do you see things going? Any predictions about long-term impact of COVID on practices?
So there are a couple things that I foresee happening. Well, first of all, in terms of predictions, there are some economic predictions out there. So this is earlier on during the COVID times when it first happened, but Paul Krugman, who is a Nobel Prize winning economist, because the thought is, well, what kind of a recovery will we have? Is it going to be a V-shaped recovery? Is it going to be a W-shaped recovery where it dips twice kind of a thing and then comes back? Or is it going to be an L-shaped recovery that's like kind of flat for a while? And so Paul Krugman said at that point in time was saying, he thinks it'll be more of a Nike swoosh recovery. And lately I've been hearing more from economists and analysts about maybe it's more like a W recovery or maybe even an L recovery. So, it's unpredictable. And regardless of what kind of a recovery we have, I think there are a couple things that will likely happen. One is that people are going to be more tight on their spending, but then people who have the money will still also have the money to spend. I mean, even, for example, when you were talking about the downturn that you've experienced when you had graduated. So during those times, people who had the money still had money. And in low recession times and Great Depression, even people who still had the money had them. And then another prediction I have is that there will be more competition with social media and online advertising. And I think that because because of what had happened with COVID and people staying home more and being online more, there's just more interest in viewing things more online. And so more businesses are also wanting to get into getting in front of people more online. So it's going to be more saturated with that. And so there's going to also be paid ads, like paid social media and things like that I believe will likely become more expensive as well as a trend. And then, so what that means is, it would be helpful to have other avenues to bring in patients in the practice and not just depend on, paid advertising if that's a big part of what you might be doing currently. Another thing that I'm noticing is that in terms of what I foresee is that I think there's going to be a demand for a niche in that, certainly was there before, but it wasn't a big, I wouldn't say it was a big part of a lot of chiropractors' practices or big specialty. But things like house calls, I think, are going to be, at least in the near future, perhaps more in demand, because especially when people are afraid of going out, if a chiropractor actually comes to their home and takes those precautions, and that could make things more convenient for people. And in terms of with what's going on, I think there are a couple of things that will be really important for chiropractors and now and coming up here is being good at navigating the I can't afford it kind of a thing. And then it's also even more important to set yourself apart because, again, there's still people with money willing to get help because you're in one of the best professions, healthcare. People still need healthcare, even if they might not buy a new car right now, or new clothes right now. So there's still a need. It's just a matter of really setting yourself apart so that people feel like, I do want to see my chiropractor. I want to see a chiropractor. Another thing is that with the potential of things coming back in the fall, or just like you mentioned, Haley, like things being unknown. So having other avenues of bring in another stream of income beyond just seeing patients and generating revenue from that one avenue is also important to explore. So that way, if this happens where you can't see patients in person, then there is another avenue to still help people and bring money in the door.
Those are all great. I've definitely seen a resurgence or surgence in house calls, I would say, or people's interest in it. If I can't do this, maybe I can do that, or they've lost their space, maybe. And so that they've, started going to people's houses, and then also definitely the people wanting that. So that's great. And then always we talk about a lot, setting yourself apart. And I think getting online and reconnecting with patients and letting them know you're there and all those things are great. What are a few tips about getting the practice busier right now outside some of those?
Yes, and you touched upon just now one of the things that I recommend as a very low-hanging fruit tip. So I have 3 key tips, and the first one is to actually stay even more connected with existing patients and educate them, and plus also ask for referrals. And the reason for that is because, as long as you have some patients, they're still the most, they're the ones who trust you the most compared to anyone else right now, and your immediate connections. And some of them may not be coming in because they either might not realize that it makes sense to come in, or they might be concerned. So part of it is about educating them on why it is even important, even more so right now, to come in. For some of them, it may make sense, right? But for some, maybe it not. But just to be able to educate as a whole. So, and then asking for referrals as well. So when you have that relationship with your existing patients, how do you actually translate that connection to also helping more people they know too? So having a structure with how to ask for it without feeling like you're needing to be gimmicky or pushy can be helpful. Now, as far as a few key immediate strategies that you can use right away would be sending something like, whether it's email, texting, or social media, sending things about, whether it's educating about why it's important to come in right now, a topic about that, and then the protective measures you're taking at your clinic. Also address the most common concerns people have about coming in. So sending a series of emails that talk about that, and then including a call to action in the email. So for example, here's a call to action from the Consistent Patients Formula for Introvert. So one is book your such and such, appointment now about that health issue you've been putting off getting checked out, or book such and such now about that health issue you've been ignoring because you haven't had the time. Here are a couple of other options. So, let's see, some other things you can incorporate in that. For example, take care of yourself by putting yourself first today. It's especially important to take care of your health during these times. And then, so those are a few email samples. And then a few text samples are, and one great thing about texting is that more people are actually opening texts now and checking their texts compared to email. Mm-hmm. And, but a mistake that I see a lot of chiropractors make when they are doing texting, if they're doing it, is to, it might feel a little too mass texting, right? Like, what do we do when we get a mass text? It's like, oh, ignore it or look at it later. So instead of that, something that is more personal, something like, I've been thinking about you, excited to share that we're open. How are you? Or maybe if you've already been open, or if they, after that first text, you could send something like, it's time for a tune-up, or it's time to book an appointment. I have a few slots left this week, Tuesday, 2, 4, or Thursday, 5 or 7 p.m. Text me back if you or someone you'd wanted to refer wants to take one of those spots. And this is one thing that one of my chiropractor clients did during this, like when she was, actually she did this during the whole COVID time in terms of, because she was still open at that time. And then when she would have cancellations during the day, then she would actually text something like this out, and she would get those canceled appointments actually filled up more by doing this. And notice that in this particular texting script too, notice it says, text me back if you or someone you had wanted to refer wants to take one of those spots. So, sometimes, did you know that 89% of people who are satisfied with your services are willing to refer, but actually only 29% actually do refer, because this is something that was done in a study once. And why do less than half the people refer? It's usually because of one of 3 reasons. And one of them has to do with not being necessarily forefront of in their mind, right? So, or maybe having, given the referral, but then that person needs to hear it a few times before coming in. But when you do something like this, whether it's now or beyond COVID-19 times, this simple texting script that I just gave can bring more patients in the practice, when you're having a slow week.
Yeah, I think all of us are craving connection right now and talking, and we're talking to more people. I feel like reaching out to family members and friends to make sure they're doing okay. And something like that might come up. So it is always nice to ask for the referral. Another thing that we found useful is supporting local businesses and helping promote them. And in that, they're helping to promote us. So I think everyone's trying to help everyone out so that we can stay on top of the economics of COVID.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I think that's great that you bring that up with the collaborating and helping each other out. And
yeah, and it comes from a very genuine place to boost their post or bring it to your audience's attention. And then a lot of times they'll share it back. So what other strategies that are working well during this time do you think are for your clients?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I will share that now. And before that, I also want to make sure, because I thought about, these templates and things that I'm giving out, and, instead of furiously writing it down. So I thought it'd be helpful for your listeners to, if they want it, to be able to download it. So let me give a link out. And so for those of you who want the email, texting, and I also have social media, a few social media templates that you could literally just swipe, in terms of get ideas from and incorporate in yours. And so you can go to introvertedvisionary.com/lifestyle practice. So introvertedvisionary.com/lifestyle practice. And as far as other strategies, so another strategy that is working really well for our clients right now is to actually have referrals happening from medical doctors and other holistic practitioners and health practitioners. So this is something that for one, let's talk about MDs. MDs have thousands of patients in their practices. And many of them have patients who aren't being helped right now with just pills and surgery. And you have such an opportunity to help their patients. And when they have thousands of patients in their practices, actually sending you 3, to 5 referrals, even a couple referrals a week, it's such a reasonable thing. And they do have a need for it. And they are willing to refer if they actually know about you and trusted in you, because they're always looking at how can I get good outcomes for my patients. It's just that their toolbox is more limited because they've been primarily trained on diagnosing really well and then giving drugs and surgery is the typical model. And so the other thing is that patients are asking for other options too. So I remember seeing a college thing that was printed out about their findings from a Gallup poll. And it was like, 50% of people have tried chiropractic in the States. And so more people are trying chiropractic and people are asking for other options. So, and then another thing is that there's going to be a huge shortage of MDs by 2025. And they're published things out there about this, and it's just a fact, that it's bound to happen. And so with, for example, this, I have to look at the time frame of these stats, but I remember seeing a graph of just even looking at one sliver of the kinds of patients that chiropractors help with, and it's just one little sliver, because I know y'all can help with even more than this, but just in terms of pain wise, there's like 65.4 million visits a year with I think it was just with back pain. So then there's just, my point is there's a need. And the nice part about this is that when you set things up once, you could, and get that relationship going, you really only need a handful of people who are your biggest champions. And you could be getting referrals for even years to come. And doctor referrals are often a much better way of growing a practice, in the sense that compared to people seeing ads about you or just hearing about you from something else, because they have the trust, of the doctors, of their doctors already. So
yeah, one of my most recent new patients, she had a referral from her doctor, and I asked her how that came about, if they referred her to our office or to her insurance. And she said that she actually had to ask for it, which she didn't need, but so the doctor was not handing them out. And so I think that connection, between the chiropractor, me, and that MD is very important to not only, for me to get more referrals, but for the doctor to know about chiropractic and realize that it can help and get the results, like you're saying, they want with their patients.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I often hear chiropractors tell me they have thought about getting in with MDs, but they run into challenges. Would you talk about some of the common challenges you've seen when trying to establish those relationships?
I would say a few key ones that I often hear. So one is, well, where do I start? Or having a good conversation, but no referrals, and then having trouble getting, or maybe even before that, having trouble getting past the gatekeepers. I think one of the most common things I hear too is feeling intimidated or think that it might be too much work to get going, so then they never try. But the truth is, I have clients who have full practices primarily from doctor referrals. So it's definitely doable. And, quite honestly, even especially during the COVID times, I would say some of my clients who continue to be busy during those times, it was because of things they set up before, that they had a good solid practice of avenues of bringing patients in, including doctor referrals. So, and in terms of I would say some of the biggest mistakes that a lot of chiropractors end up making when they're trying to get in with MDs. So here are some of them that I often see. So one of them is sending a letter and sending lots of letters to doctors in the area, and why that doesn't work. I mean, just think about it. If you get a letter from this random person, even if they're a provider, it's like, well, okay, I'll look at this later, right? Or maybe it ends up in the trash from your front office person screening them out. Another mistake is expecting referrals from mainly one conversation. So sometimes I'll hear from chiropractors sharing with me when they've tried it, and then they think that it doesn't work. And it's like, well, what did you do? Oh, I had this really good conversation with them, but I just haven't gotten any referrals from them. Right? So another mistake is giving up too early, which ties into that. So whereas, just having and thinking of this as more of a relationship, and then having a way to approach them and also educate them, plus get them to the point to where they would start referring is really key. And it doesn't have to take forever either. So it's just a matter of knowing what to do. For example, I had a chiropractor client of mine who we worked on this, and literally within a couple of weeks time frame, she got her foot in the door and got her first doctor referrals from this one doctor she hadn't gotten referrals from. And then another mistake I see is that concern of seeing you as competition. Just thinking, well, they're not going to refer, or I haven't had a good experience before because, these doctors in my area don't refer. So if that's the case, then likely you're going to attract people who are like that too, because that's the kind of energy, that you're putting out. It's like, oh, no one's going to refer to me because everybody is not going to want to refer. Right? So,
yeah. But if they've referred in the past, it just was to the wrong person, then they're more likely to refer to you if once they meet you and understand that you fit the criteria of working with them. And
yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then there are it's true. A lot of doctors aren't, like a lot of MDs won't refer to chiropractors, unfortunately, and that needs to change, and we need to educate them so that does change. But we don't really need everybody referring either. We just need a handful of MDs who are your biggest champions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're making good strides in that. It's of course going to be slow, but I think there are medical schools that have chiropractors come speak and talk on chiropractic. And I think that's a good step in the right direction. I know it's not everywhere, but one here and one there is a good thing. So a lot of lessons to be learned in those four mistakes that you said that could tie to other things too. So what would you recommend doing instead of those? What's a good way? What's working now to connect with doctors?
Sure. So I think that one important thing initially is to have more of a strategy, and then also with which kind of doctors are good to get in with as well. And because what I find is that most chiropractors go straight to so we help our clients with this through systems that they can plug into to actually start getting those doctor referrals. And one thing I often notice is that it's like people just jump straight to step 3, which is about trying to get in with the doctors without much preparation, and of thinking who would be the best kind of provider, and then getting things ready, just getting some key things in place before starting to reach out, because it'll be more successful that way. And so one thing is to think about for example, if you have more of an insurance-based practice, if you have more of a cash-based practice, then you may want to connect with physicians who primarily also accept cash. So it's just that won't end up being so much of a concern, to come see you. That's just one simple thing. And then in terms of what to do to actually get their attention right now, especially when they might be busy during these times, and then you might not want to be going out, meet to doctor's offices in person and that kind of thing. So one thing that's worked really well for our clients right now is doing a short video that brings up some key points and then leads to getting those referrals happening. And so I actually worked on this with a client of ours recently, and she did exactly that. And it was really cool because then she got interest from that physician and that she wanted to get in with, and she can use that. Like, that doesn't have to be, like, she can change up the beginning of that video and it could be sent out to other doctors, or even just use that video too. And then it's more automated, in the outreach, instead of feeling like you always have to be doing stuff to do the outreach. Another thing that's working really well, so another chiropractor client of mine just is doing this right now, and he has been reaching out to physicians through LinkedIn and then getting their interest, and then hopping on Zoom meetings to chat. So yeah, and then it's just important to have the other things in place that actually start, having this, have a system in place that you start actually getting referrals from it. So.
Okay. And I think some people might come up against, they have this feeling that they're not going to be able to get to talk to the doctor. Somebody's going to stop them in their tracks and they really won't get past the front desk or calling and leaving a message. What kind of advice do you have for getting past those gatekeepers?
So there are a couple of things that I would recommend. One is through your existing patients, because if you have mutual patients, if you have a patient that already sees a medical doctor and then you're getting good results for your patients, that's a great way to get your foot in the door because you're getting introduced by a mutual patient. Another thing is that you could collaborate with MDs right now who do COVID-19 testing, because maybe some of your patients might need COVID-19 testing and then you aren't doing it. Or maybe you could actually start doing some of those testing if it's kosher with the laws of your state and profession, what you're doing. And then that way there's a reason to actually, connect and develop that relationship. So another way to get past the gatekeeper is to interview them. So one of my clients did this, and actually not just one. I'm thinking of quite a few, but in terms of, I can think of two that really stand out for me. So one of them really wanted to have this one physician in the area refer to her more, but he was referring to this other practitioner. And so I suggested that she interview him, and then we worked on what she was going to ask and all this. And it was really cool because she interviewed him, and it was also aired on Facebook Live. And he was so excited about it. This is a medical doctor. So he was really excited and would show it to his patients. Uh-huh. And then she also put it up on her website. So it helped boosted the credibility of her, just being involved with that interview as well. And what was really cool about it was that she got 7 referrals from that MD that week. And
that's nice.
Because she then through that interview they were able to connect, and he was able to also understand more of what she's up to, and that connection was just built further. So he ended up referring. Another client of mine, we just did this recently, where she interviewed another practitioner, and this person wasn't an MD; it was another holistic practitioner. And what was really cool was that that practitioner actually ended up giving her a referral, from after doing that interview, because, then that person also learned more about what she did. So those are a few hacks as far as go around strategy. In terms of approaching doctors with more through your existing patients. So one thing that I've also decided to include for those of you who wanted to download templates that I'm giving you from today, so or the interview today, I will also be giving you the template for, how do you approach a doctor when you do have a mutual patient? Because just because you have a mutual patient, they are busy too. So how are you going to be able to get their interest? So I'll make sure to include that in the templates.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. Mm-hmm. So beyond these tips, what else is needed to be successful for the MD referrals? Any other things that come to mind?
So a couple of things I would say is being able to continue to keep the doctor in the medical doctor or other, potential referrer that keep you in their minds. And that could include giving them studies, access to studies, or just other kinds of things that actually help them just remember you, and having a system that keeps you on their radar without bothering them, and a system that also multiplies the referrals that you get too. And plus, for those of you who want to get in with doctors for whom you don't have a mutual patient, then, how do you get past the gatekeepers? And these are part of the reason why I know so much about this and also help our clients with the shortcuts to this is because I've actually worked in different settings with MDs. So in the hospital setting, outpatient, at Merck and at FDA. So I've worked with them in different settings that what would actually make them refer versus not. So really giving shortcuts to that.
Your perspective is appreciated by everyone because I think, we all wonder, how can we do that? What's the best way to do it? How can we do it without turning off the other person, the MD, and make it work for us? And for them too, I think it can be a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yes, for sure.
What's another strategy that you're finding is working well in this climate?
So another strategy that's working really well right now is educating people more online. Why? Because more people are checking things out online. And then also for those of you who are doing telehealth, because I know that some of you are, whether you have chiropractic patients you're doing consults with, telehealth, or maybe you're doing more functional medicine that way. So this, in terms of this strategy that I'm going to be sharing, can also help you with booking more telehealth appointments. And then for those of you who might want to develop new streams of income, when I work with our clients, we usually work on putting different income streams into the practice. And there's actually a lot of different possibilities that many chiropractors haven't thought about. Here's one. For example, are there things that you say over and over again that you feel like you're sometimes a broken record for your patients? And then even if you say it over and over again, they don't always remember. And so one thing that you could do is, could you actually put together something that is educational and helpful, and that would be put together in an automated way? So, for example, an automated course or virtual course kind of a thing that you could charge for, and that people, whether they are your patients or not, could actually purchase it. And then there are other possibilities for other streams of income, whether it's offering products or private labeling supplements, or other kinds of things that could be supported. But in terms of getting the word out about telehealth or another stream of health, or just not another stream of health, but another stream of income, or just even with getting more patients in the door, what doesn't work so well typically, though, if you're wanting to get people's attention online, is what I was talking about before, which is, just ads, for example, or just social media posts. Why? Because there is more competition online nowadays too. So one thing that is really interesting is, if you think about, for example, Dr. Josh Axe, chiropractor, and has a multi-million-dollar business and online, and or Dr. Mark Hyman, functional medicine, or Dr. Alan Christensen, he's actually a New York Times bestselling author and helps people with more hormone-related kinds of things. So what do these practitioners have in common? They all speak. They started their businesses with speaking, and they are still speaking even when they have this huge online presence. And as a matter of fact, I have a client of mine who used to see Dr. Josh Axe in his practice. And he said, oh yeah, I know he built his practice by speaking. So in terms of speaking, what can you do with that? If and also why is that so effective? I think it's because, when people aren't coming, it's because they don't really know how you can help. But when you're actually in front of them, they're listening to you, whether you're in front of them in person or they're listening to you online, then they get to understand and be educated more about it. And they get to see if they resonate with you, much more so than if they just saw some fleeting, social media post or ad and that kind of thing. So what can you do, though, right now when you might feel restricted with, well, we can't get large groups together and, that kind of thing, depending on what part of the country you're in. So if you are in that situation, then you can look at doing things like webinars or interviews or Facebook Lives or YouTube videos. For example, I had a client of mine who was featured through a Facebook Live to her church, and she ended up getting patients from it using our structures and systems in terms of, okay, well, what do you say, right? It's not just getting visibility, but also, being able to translate that into patients. So those are a few different avenues that are working really well right now. And there's one thing I also wanted to say too about the speaking side of things. And then what's really key about that working is then also, so what I recommend is having a talk in place that is one main talk, like a signature talk that you can use over and over again. So it's not like every time you're speaking, you have to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to go and create something. And it just, but instead you just create one signature talk that has been created for the purpose of not only educating people, but also inspiring them to either book with you to become patient of yours or with whatever it is that you're offering from the talk. And then something that could be adapted for, in things like interviews. And then the other thing is just, where to get booked and then also having the systems that support getting the referrals coming in. But it's totally doable. I have clients who are continuing to get new patients right now because of doing this. And you can be literally at home and, not have to leave the house. Just like you and I are right now, right? So,
yeah, I think everyone's looking for those ways to get themselves out there and the opportunities to still build their practice. And so these are great ideas. So appreciate you being on here. Can you tell us how the listeners can get a hold of you or connect with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yes. So, and then as far as taking this further, you can go to introvertedvisionary.com/lifestyle practice. And, for those of you who are in a place where you are feeling like you are just slow right now and want to be busier, or especially because of these times, or just that is just slow. Or you might actually be in a place where you are already busy, but there's only one of you to go around and only so much time in the day, and you're starting to feel more burnt out and can't see this happening much longer before you really burn yourself out, and would like to have more free time back in your life, and have a life more, and then be able to spend more time with your kids, or just have more time to yourself too. So feel free to book a chat with us, and happy to see how we can help. So a free strategy session, and that's when you go to that link, you'll be able to book in with us, and then you'll also be able to get those templates that I promised you. So the email, texting, social media templates. You can use right away to bring patients in now. Also, we talked about the I can't afford it thing that some of you may be hearing more of lately. So we have an Introverted Visionaries 6 Figures Plus Mastermind, where we're helping our clients go from 6 to 7 figures, and in a way that's like it's more introverted versus having to always be putting yourself out there kind of thing, right? So, and so in that mastermind, we actually got together once, and everyone wrote down some of the things that they're hearing from patients about why they're not wanting to come in right now, and then also put in there how to address it that's been working, and I've also added what I've seen has been working for clients too. So it's in that template. And then the doctor referral script that when you want to approach a mutual patient to get your foot in the door with interest from a medical doctor to refer. So I'm going to include those templates that you can just download and use in your practice to help you bring patients in quickly. And so I'll give that link again. It's introvertedvisionary.com/lifestyle practice. And I look forward to giving you insight and into your practice and growing it more effectively. So
I think those are all very helpful. So I hope everyone visits. We'll have the link in our social media and in the blog post for this episode. So thank you so much, Chen, for being on today. We appreciate your help and appreciate you for helping support our profession. Thanks again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it with your friends on Instagram and Facebook. And for those of you who are already subscribers, we really appreciate it. Thanks for the reviews. We love reading those and knowing that you're loving the podcast. If you're looking for more tips and inspiration, be sure to check us out at lifestylepracticebuilders.com or join our business and marketing Facebook group for chiropractors at facebook.com/group/lifestylepractice.